I think I mentioned in an earlier video about how I started rewatching Evangelion recently, and it's been going pretty well so far. One consequence of this is that it's gotten me to start thinking about religion a bit more, because they spend the entire show fighting beings known as angels. I was raised Roman Catholic, so that was the first religion that came to mind for me. One of the big stories is that of Jesus. He is born of a virgin and super smart when he's young, etc. The thing I want to focus on is his death and rebirth, because that is one of the things I believe is constantly misinterpreted by people reading the Bible or any religious text for that matter. I don't believe Jesus was a real person, and I don't believe there is a place called heaven waiting for the good people and hell waiting for the bad people. However, I do think it speaks to the natural inclinations of human psychology that make society function on an individual level. Think about what goes into changing your mind about something. What are the necessary steps you must take in order to make any sort of change? Well, first, you must acknowledge the flaws in what you're doing. Then you have to stop doing that thing. Then you have to spend time developing a new mindset. And finally, you start acting out the new change for however long you see fit. It seems simple at first, but I believe this is what they're trying to convey with the story of Jesus' death and resurrection. For example, why does God bother showing him that he is going to die? Because the first part of a change is acknowledgement. In this case, God is letting Jesus know he has to make the change. However, God and Jesus are technically the same person lore-wise, so it translates to the divine part of someone telling their human self that they must make the change. This would also explain why Jesus felt so much anguish, because making a change is often difficult. It is extremely difficult for someone to admit that they were wrong. It is something that requires great humility, which can destroy the ego if done incorrectly. What follows is significant torture for Jesus, the most poignant being that he must carry his own cross to his crucifixion site. Now, why would they make him carry his own cross? Well, it is supposed to parallel the individual pain one feels when trying to change something about themselves, because people tend to cherish their ideals. In fact, it has been shown that emotional pain activates the similar regions of the brain that deal with physical pain, so it is appropriate for them to make this journey a physical one, because that mirrors the emotional struggle we undergo to make any meaningful changes. Shortly after all this, he dies and spends some time in hell. This is another essential piece of the process, because after you make a significant change, you remain lost until you find something to replace it. This is why they make him spend some time there before being able to return and go to heaven. It is necessary to reach rock bottom and then build yourself back up from that point. When he returns, he makes a spectacle of himself and shows people that he has done it. Why does he bother with this if he's just going to go to heaven anyways? Well, it is to show that one of your duties after creating a positive change is to spread that positivity to as much people as possible, not to feed your ego because that ego is dead, but rather to make everyone in your sphere of influence better. Remember, societies back then, and even now to some degree, required extremely tight interpersonal connections between members to succeed. It is no wonder why they would make Jesus spread his influence as far as he can, because everything was about societal continuity. Finally, he overcomes his humanity and ascends into heaven, which represents the final and probably most important part of any change, the growth that follows. After you have been through your intense suffering, you come out on the other side better for it and become something greater than human. This brings us to what I believe God represents. God is the pinnacle of your existence. We all have a piece of him in us because we all have the potential to achieve the same heights as Jesus if we are willing to kill the ideas holding us down and have them be reborn as a new, reformed mindset that coincides with what will improve yourself and everyone around you. This is why I say that all MGTOW died before, because in order to go MGTOW, you must first discard the blue pill mindset you had maintained up until then. This is why the red pill grief cycle exists. Jesus had to suffer significantly before he was able to change. And so, in the same way, you must go through that process as well. However, there are a lot of guys who get stuck in the nihilism, depression, or anger along the way, and that parallels Jesus going to hell before he could ascend. That is what hell is, the negative mindset that keeps people who do bad things trapped there because they cannot escape themselves. Wherever you go, there you are, so hell keeps them trapped for all eternity. In reality, you can escape in the same way Jesus did. You must go there willingly and face it before you can return and reach the pinnacle of your existence. If you can make it through, you can find the heaven that is MGTOW, pave your own way, and find eternal happiness through everlasting freedom. As for spreading to your community, just living a happy life will be enough to show the merits of your lifestyle. Since we cannot preach MGTOW philosophy publicly, we must instead lead by example. The phrase show don't tell is quite fitting here. Regardless, it is up to you to determine what your vision of heaven is. Maybe you find that heaven is living on a boat and fishing every day for food out in the open sea. Maybe you prefer the city life and want to have a large circle of friends to hang out with from time to time. Whatever it is, just promise me this: don't let someone else decide what it is for you. Take time to introspect away from external influences and ask yourself what you find most valuable. Then pursue that until you wish to pursue something else. The choice is entirely up to you and you alone. That's all I have to say for this video. As I keep rewatching Evangelion, I start to realize what I liked about it so much. It has some interesting psychological insights on the psychology of an adolescent, and it's one of the few shows that could pull it off properly. If you haven't watched it yet, I would highly recommend it. But yeah, that's about it. Like and subscribe for more content like this, and as always, stay prosperous.